In the fifth Sicha of Chelek Tes Zayin of Likutei Sichos, the Rebbe explains the very famous machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer. It's a machlokes which is found in the Haggadah. Rabbi Eliezer holds that each makkah in Mitzrayim was really 4 makkahs. Rabbi Akiva says that each makkah was really 5. It's based on two different ways of reading the same pasuk, and whether the pasuk tells us of 5 different levels or 4 different levels. And the Rebbe then explains the aspect of that machlokes in Nigla at the beginning of the Sicha. The end of the Sicha, the Rebbe explains the machlokes in Ruchnius, in spirituality. Yetzias Mitzrayim means getting out of certain limitations of our Avodas Hashem in terms of our neshama. So the 4 levels of Rabbi Eliezer relate to, first, the level in which, based on machshava, dibur, and ma'isa, thought, speech, and action, which relates to the levels of soul that are clothed in the body, on that level of reality, it might be that there's a certain mitzrayim, a certain limitation, chos v'shalom, that a person could actually transgress the will of HaKadosh Boruch on the level of thought, speech, and action. A slightly higher level is the level of midas, emotional attributes, that a person might not transgress in action, and even in thought, speech, or action, but their midas, their emotional state, might still not be completely connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rabbi says that would be a person who is interested in the way the world looks at him and is still very involved in what's called Hanachas Ha'olam, the basic way that the world looks at reality, and is interested in how people perceive him relative to worldly reality. Again, his behavior is fine, but a certain internal aspect of him is still lacking. The third level is the level of seichel, intellect, so that his avodah is limited by tam v'das, limited by what intellect will decide is reasonable behavior. And then the highest level is the level of Yetzias Mitzrayim, even on the level of Chokhmah, which would be the Tanu of Mesiras Nefesh, of self-sacrifice. The level of self-sacrifice is discussed in Tanya. The level of self-sacrifice is rooted in Chokhmah Shebenefesh, the highest level of the conscious reality of Nefesh, the source of consciousness, Chokhmah. Rabbi Akiva talks about a 5th level, even the level of Yechidah Shebenefesh, the essence of the soul. Even that level can somehow experience a certain aspect of Mitzrayim, of limitation. And that's a very, very fascinating idea, because generally when we talk about Etzem and Neshama, we talk about the essence of the soul, we talk about a state of reality that is of essential connection without any lacking whatsoever. So how can there possibly be an expression of, so to speak, lacking in Etzem? So of course there's no lacking in the actual essence of the soul. The question is, relative to our avodah, is the essence of our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu being revealed in the fullest way imaginable? Or is there a certain limitation to that expression? The essence of the soul itself is absolutely pure and connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in an essential way. The mashal brought in our life is DNA. Your DNA is what it is. Your genetic code is what it is. So if your DNA is that you have black hair, so you have black hair, and you can't make it any blacker by dyeing it black, and you can't make your DNA any less black by dyeing your hair blonde. Your DNA is what it is. Your revealed reality could be inconsistent with your essential reality, but your essential reality doesn't change. The DNA is what it is. So Etzem and Neshama is that level of our soul that is essentially connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what's the notion of the limitation, so to speak, the Yetzias Mitzrayim on that level? The Rebbe explains in his very, very famous mimer, well-known mimer, Va'ata Tetzava, a mimer that was actually the last mimer that the Rebbe edited for us in Adar, Tafshin Nun Beis, 1992. And in that mimer, the Rebbe explains the difference between 2 different levels of what we would call Mesiras Nefesh. two different levels of what's called in the Maimer Kosis Lamor, that the crushedness of Golus produces the most powerful expression of the neshama, the ma'or, the luminary of the neshama, which is the essence of the neshama. And that can be expressed in two different ways. Rabbi says that can be expressed through Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. That's a result of the situation in Golus, that the situation in Golus is a terrible situation such that the Jews are oppressed by Gezeres, like at the time of Purim, and in the time of the previous Rebbe in the Soviet Union. And that oppression produces a revelation of Etzem and the Neshama as it's expressed in Mesiras Nefesh. But there's another level of Kosis Lamar, the crushedness of Golus, that will produce a revelation of Ma'or, the luminary of the soul, the essence of the soul. And that's not that the situation in Golus is difficult. The situation in Golus might be excellent, might be very good. The Jews are doing well in material matters and in spiritual matters. They're not oppressed in any way, shape, or form. But the essential existence of Golus crushes the Jew. Why? Because his essential desire is that a Kadosh Baruch will be revealed in this world, and as long as that revelation isn't complete, the Jew is crushed. That's a higher level, the Rebbe says. And what's the difference between those two? There's a certain limitation to the first level, in that it might not always be expressed. In other words, in a time of oppression, the person might exhibit tremendous Mesiras Nefesh. But that Mesiras Nefesh is limited because if the Jew were to leave that state of oppression, so in our day, leave the Soviet Union, and the Mesiras Nefesh, the tremendous self-sacrifice necessary to serve God, is no longer necessary because they're now in a place where the service of God is not in any way, shape, or form affected by external forces. So then they don't necessarily express this tremendous level of Mesiras Nefesh. Whereas, Kosis Lamar is that level where the essence of their neshama is revealed in everything they do at all times, because it's not the situation in Golus that bothers them, it's the essential existence of Golus. And what's the difference, the Rebbe explains, in an absolutely fascinating understanding of the different ways in which the essence of the soul can express itself in our conscious reality. What's the difference between those two states? The first state, the state of Mesiras Nefesh, as a result of the difficulty in Golus, the situation in Golus, that's a situation where, the Rebbe says, Etzem and the Neshama, the essence of the soul, expresses itself in the revealed powers of the soul. So the person's conscious reality is expressing Mesiras Nefesh. But it's not that the conscious reality has been changed by this. It's affected temporarily by virtue of the fact that the higher level has come down, this level of Etzem and Neshama has come down to roost in the conscious reality of the Jew, and so he expresses this incredible Mesiras Nefesh to stay connected to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. But that's when the Lamaila, the higher level, comes down into the lower level and expresses itself in the lower level. Therefore, the Tziyur, the reality of the lower level, hasn't actually been changed. It's simply a kli, it's simply a vessel for the expression of this essential connection. And when that expression is no longer necessary, so then the revealed reality might revert back to its original state. Kosis Lamar is when it's not that Etzem and the Neshama, the essence of the soul, has come down to express itself in the revealed powers of the soul. It's that the revealed powers of the soul have been elevated to a point where they are connected to the essence of the soul. And therefore, that's long-lasting. That's complete. And that won't change. So therefore, the Jew stays in that state of Kosis Lamar. It's not a function of the external situation in Golus. It's a function of the essential existence of Golus, because the Jew has come to a point where their revealed conscious reality is one with their essential reality, and their essential reality obviously wants one thing and one thing only, that God should be revealed in this world. Therefore, their conscious reality is broken and crushed by virtue of the fact that that's not existent. That doesn't mean that they're not serving God b'simcha, God forbid. Of course they're serving God b'simcha, because that's the way we bring the Geula. But they're crushed by the very existence of Golus and do everything they can to bring about the end of that Golus. Why? because they want a Kadosh Baruch Hu to be revealed. That's their Ratzon Amiti, that's their true desire. The first state, as amazing as it is, on a certain level, is a limitation of Etzem and Neshama. Not a limitation of the Etzem itself, but a limitation of the expression of the Etzem in the revealed powers of the Jews, such that there will come a time, perhaps, when they leave the oppressed area and go to a place that's a place of greater freedom, they won't necessarily express Mesiras Nefesh. They'll be unrecognizable. In modern day terms here in Eretz Yisrael, can you tell which soldier was just on the front in Gaza when he's walking down the street in his street clothes? Not necessarily. As amazing as the Mesiras Nefesh is, it hasn't necessarily brought about a complete and total change in their conscious reality. So when they're not at the front, they might act differently. Not chas v'sholem in a negative way, but there's no revelation of that unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh that they're exhibiting on the front in Gaza. Or the Jew from Russia, who came from Russia and ended up in Eretz Yisrael or in America. And it's not so obvious that he expressed such incredible Mesiras Nefesh when he was behind the Iron Curtain before the fall of communism. This Rabbi Akiva talks about the Yetzias Mitzrayim of the fifth level, meaning the Yetzias Mitzrayim of Etzem and Neshama. The true Yetzias Mitzrayim of Etzem and Neshama is not chas v'sholem that Etzem and Neshama is limited, but that its expression in our Neshama is limited. And the ultimate Geula comes from the fact that the Jew is kosis lamori, he's crushed, not by the situation in Golus, because that's an imposition from outside of him, but rather by the essential existence of Golus, which is basically our situation today. Because in general, even though obviously at this particular moment we're going through a very, very difficult time, but in general, our generation is a generation of tremendous harchava, tremendous freedom in the context of gashmias, material matters, and ruchnias, spiritual matters. And yet, what will bring Mashiach? The fact that we're crushed not by the situation in Galus. The situation in Galus is relatively good. As a matter of fact, even with the difficulties we're dealing with now, it's still a very, very wonderful state relative to other states we've been in our history. But that's not what's bothering the Jew. What's bothering the Jew is the very fact that we're in Galus. That level, Kosis Lamar, that's the level of our generation. The generation before in Russia, they exhibited tremendous Mesiras Nefesh. Our generation takes it to an even deeper level. The situation in Galus is good. In Gashmias and in Ruchnias, we have 5 shuls we can choose to daven in. We have 5 schools we can decide to send our children to. Baruch Hashem, there's a possibility of making a living and living like a mensch. But the Jew is still crushed by the essential existence of Golus. And it's that crushedness which touches the deepest place in Etzem and Neshama, the essence of our soul, and reveals it in our conscious powers. And it's that which will ultimately bring Mashiach ad Mosai, that inability to stand the existence of Golus for one moment longer, because a Kadosh Baruch Hu must be revealed in the world. It should happen tekef umiyad mamish.